Hello everyone, and welcome to Camelot Chat. I'm your hostess, Shannon Watson, and this week's episode is Bertolais, Knight, Seneschal, or something else. Let's review. The last 2 weeks' episodes covered the two Arthurian arch-villains of the French romances, Cleodulus, King Leodagan's cuckolded seneschal, and Bertolais, one of Leodagan's knights, who had been convicted of murder and exiled. The Vulgate Lancelot reads as if these were two distinct men. But it makes more sense to me if Cleodulus, Leodagan's seneschal and the wronged stepfather of the false Guinevere, and Bertolais, the false Guinevere's later seneschal, were the same person. I mean, someone helped the false Guinevere betray her biological father and half-sister, insert herself in King Arthur's wedding bed, and launched a failed abduction of the true queen. Cleodulus had the strongest motive to act against King Leodagan. The character of Bertolais didn't appear until the whole wedding night was over. The plot was foiled by Merlin, the Sir Francis Walsingham spymaster to Arthur's Queen Elizabeth I monarch, who put the false Guinevere and her terrorist seneschal on trial, presumably for sedition, treason, and attempted murder. Each was found guilty. Each was exiled. The murder for which Bertolais was sentenced could have occurred during the failed coup against King Arthur, Queen Guinevere, and her father, King Leodagan. It may even have been Leodagan who Bertolais murdered. Whatever the case, this splitting of characters occurs over and over again in Arthurian legend. I believe that the seneschal character is an amalgamation of Cleodulus and Bertolais. Maybe one of them represents the beginning of the character's story, and the other the end. Either way, the tale of the seneschal's life reads like the archetype of the evil advisor, a prototype which appears in many modern fairy tales. In this set piece, Bertolais plays the grasping vizier Jafar to Leodagan's sultan in Disney's Aladdin, or the Grand Vizier Ahosha Tarkin in the Chronicles of Narnia. Another equivalent, this one historical, to the avaricious advisor Bertolais, postdates Arthurian Britain. In Berber-era Spain, Almanzor, the victorious, was chancellor to Caliph Hisham II. After a 20-year alliance with Aurora, the caliph's mother, Almanzor stole the throne during a palace coup that ended with a triumphal parade worthy of a victorious Roman general. This was followed by the caliph's imprisonment and his mother's probable death in prison. Almanzor assumed the throne. A second famous example of the mysterious evil royal counselor is Rasputin, who played the role of advisor to Tsarina Alexandra and may have contributed to the downfall of the Romanov dynasty of Imperial Russia. As with Richard Neville, 16th Earl of Warwick, during the Wars of the Roses, the Arthurian era also had kingmakers. Merlin is a prime example. Others, like the Archbishop Dubricius, were early Christian prelates. Just such a one fathered the Saxon shield maiden Kvenhild. That kingmaker was the Archbishop Vitalis. He would later go by another name, King Vortigern. My grasping seneschal Bertolais was another kingmaker counselor, except Bertolais was no Christian. Let's look at his nicknames. Can they add any color to this? In fact, they can, as one of his agnomens was the Red. While this name may have stemmed from a physical characteristic such as red hair, it could have carried a less innocent connotation, such as the bloody or the bloodthirsty. Interestingly, the name Bertholais comes from two Welsh words, Berth, beautiful, fine, fair, and lay, the lesser. But lay also means the red, so maybe this is how this nickname survived in the text. Bertolais' second nickname is the Old. Hen, in both Proto-Brythonic and Welsh, means the old. It descends from the Proto-Celtic stem senos. This is the same nickname borne by the famous Cole Hen of York, known to modern nursery rhyme as Old King Cole. It is also the same Celtic stem from which the word seneschal derives. My guess? Someone translating in the Middle Ages saw what was originally intended as the title seneschal and mistook it for the common nickname the aged or the old. So, What was a seneschal? The title and function have altered through the ages. The word seneschal first lands in Middle English around 1393 AD. It comes from the Old French seneschal, which itself derived from the medieval Latin senescalcus. Both these words indicate a steward having charge of a medieval nobleman's estate, and correlate to the Romance's description of Cleodalis' function in Leodagan's household. But wait, there's more. In Old French, the word seneschal also meant a guardian or protector. This came from Proto-Germanic, scalcus, a knight or servant. Now we're getting closer to Bertolais' original described function as a knight of King Leodagan. Finally, Seneschal in the Old Irish, which would have been contemporary to the 5th century, means a reciter of lore or historian. So we see the title evolving down the centuries along with the function. What might, in the 14th century of the Vulgate Lancelot, have been a household servant, such as a steward or a knight, could easily have originated from the earlier function of history keeper, or even an historical bard of sorts, perhaps a keeper of the genealogies of the royal house. Either way, a trusted position close to the king or chieftain of the house. Bertolais would have had to be intelligent and reliable. As house historian, he must have possessed an excellent memory and a great deal of discretion. He would have had access to the entire household, including the grounds and other servants. He may have been in a position to dismiss servants and to appoint his own family and friends in their places. The king and his extended family, including Guinevere, would have trusted him. I sense behind the name Bertolais another more ancient reference. What if Bertolais was something more powerful, more arcane? The romances tell us that Bertolais was empowered to act as head judge over a panel of judges, all his kinsmen, in the trial of Queen Guinevere. Who authorized him to act in this capacity? If the tales are true, King Arthur did. But why? What would render a formerly exiled murderer a fit judge in any trial? Was Arthur really so bamboozled, besotted, or doped up that his judgment had sunk this far? Was he really so lost without his former general and king whisperer, Merlin, that he could determine no better than this? Why put this twice disgraced, untrustworthy man in charge of a case of such great import to the king, the court, the queen, and the realm? Here's another strange possibility. Taken from the slightly older language of Proto-Celtic, the name Bertolais becomes Bertolus, cut brow. Rendered from the same language, Cleodalis transforms into Cladalos, split brow, a close match. Could this more ancient rendering of cut or split brow point toward an equally ancient arcane function? Perhaps. After St. Michael the Archangel smote him and cast him out of heaven, a piece of Lucifer's brow was said to have fallen to earth as an emerald. That emerald became one of the several possible incarnations of the Holy Grail. Does this point to a cultic or at least religious function? Perhaps this practice of smiting and the accompanying name are a reenactment of the ancient war in heaven? Or maybe not. Although Bertolais is said to have later repented his sins, this passage in the prose Lancelot may be a later Christian gloss, and the biblical reference could have been a late Christian overlay to a practice originally pagan, Eastern, and much older than the 14th century. I have another, more compelling reason for believing Bertolais performed an arcane cultic function. I will be discussing it in next week's episode. Bertolais or Bertolac, a seneschal, a murderer, and the Green Knight walk into a bar. For all the dirty details, tune in to next week's Camelot chat. If you can't wait for more Arthurian lore till the next episode, you will find my historical fiction novel, The Wanderer and the Wolves, told from the young Queen Guinevere's perspective on Amazon.com. The link is included below. For insider news on my upcoming books, a personal weekly email reminder of published episodes, And to support the show, check out the supporter link below. And be sure to check out my author page at shandeverestudios.com. Until next week, people who read live in many worlds. Books are the surest portals to those worlds. So keep living, keep reading, and keep dreaming. Till we meet again.